like I said, Hobbesian existence.
Also, Dr. Adamu, is it high time Mr. President declared a state of emergency on insecurity across the country?
With all sense of responsibility, Olajumoke, Mr. President should call a simple National Security Council meeting. That is what our Constitution provides for. Our Constitution provides for the National Security Council to discuss public security. Now, the advantage of calling for the National Security Council meeting is that it has its administrative organs. Decisions that are taken within the National Security Council, once they are gazetted, they almost have the force of law. And it means any erring official who does not abide by those provisions can actually be penalized. And in fact, in certain instances, can be tried. So if the president issues a directive and that directive is taken by the administrative team that runs that council and they turn it into key instruments, tools for the performance of this security organization, they can now use it to measure their activities. So let's start from that. I am not supportive of a declaration of a state of emergency. Let's start from the National Security Council meeting where this matter will be discussed appropriately. Of course, the president has the right to call anyone he wishes. That's what the Constitution says. Apart from the members as provided for in the Constitution, he can call anyone to come and brief him on this issue. And I think it's high time that the private sector is also invited to share ideas and views. Let's not forget that the private sector is even more than the public sector in security. At the last time we counted, there are up to about 3 million employees of the private sector security in Nigeria. The public security is just 1 million. So this is the time perhaps to take advantage of that. The third level is retired security personnel that are also willing and happy to contribute to that. So before a declaration of state of emergency, I think we can do all of this. The other element, which is absolutely important, is the president should engage the governors. The other day, on your platform, on your station, one of your colleagues was discussing with one of the presidential advisors on media, and he more or less blamed the governors. So I think instead of a public, blaming, why don't the president invite the governors and then together as a group, they can take key decisions on how to address this monster. All of the drivers and triggers of insecurity exist at the subnational level. Very few of them exist at the federal level. So the role of the governors and to an extent, the role of the chairman of local government is also absolutely important. So I believe that the president can do all of this before we start discussing state of emergency.
So I wanted to focus on Benue and Plateau for the next few minutes because, we've seen dastardly and callous killings in Benue State. Same pattern of attacks on the Plateau. While armed herders are on the rampage in one part of the state, local bandits are unleashing terror in another part of the state. Are you pleased with the way the governors are handling this matter?
I believe they can do better, and I honestly would sometimes a little bit uncomfortable when we narrow the discussion to Benue and Plateau. Like we discussed the last
So that's
time.
just for the next few minutes. I'm sure we're going to expatiate later on, but for now, Benue and Plateau.
Okay, so I believe the governors can do better. In terms of the arrangement that they have in place for addressing security in their states. Security has about 6 layers, and each of these layers, there are systems, that are in place to support each of these layers. And based on my understanding, and believe me, I know each of these states very well. I've visited them, I've discussed with their commissioners or special advisors on security, so I do know what they have in place. It can be improved upon. I always like referring to what is in existence in Lagos. None of these states has near what Lagos has in terms of the state level infrastructure. As an example, Lagos was very insightful to create a security trust fund. And the manner that trust fund is being managed is transparent. It's managed like a private, run institution with all the necessary rudiments for managing a business. So none of the states has something similar to that. Number 2, a command and control center where you can record incidents, where you can coordinate response to incidents. None of the state has something as effective as what Lagos has. Number three, the state level arrangements, such as the Lagos Neighborhood Watch that we have. Now, even though in most of the states they have vigilantes, but the structure and the management of these vigilantes is nothing compared to what the Neighborhood Watch is in Lagos in terms of their, equipment, in terms of the training they have, in terms of the support they are getting from the state and the community. None of that, and a few other things that they could do better. So having structures at the granular level, Plateau State and Benue State have topographies that are very difficult to meander. So what are they waiting for in terms of making sure that the appropriate equipment for surveillance in particular in those locations are in existence? Then the other component is also the kind of relationships they have with neighboring states. In the case of Benue, it does have a border with an international country, which is Cameroon. And from what we're hearing, a significant number of the attackers may actually be coming in through that border area. So what are we waiting for? At what point is the governor going to either engage with the federal government or reach a handshake to the regional governor in the other country, just like Borno State has done through multilateral platforms? I don't think the governor should wait. He needs to do that so that there is some level of cooperation and intelligence sharing, as well as pressure on the federal government to ensure that there are military operations are along that borderline. So in summary, I think the state governors can do better in the security architecture. The third point, which is I think even more important than the two other points I've mentioned, is the type of governance that they have in place. Is that governance, does it promote inclusivity? Does it promote managing resources in an equitable manner? And does it also promote dispute resolution and peace, keeping processes within the state? Or is it a divisive one that encourages the type of conflict that we're seeing at the moment? I think there is room for improvement in that regard, especially, and I want to emphasize this, in land governance. Land governance in both states is at the center of some of the conflicts that you have in those locations. So where they're not able to have a land governance policy that is effective, I usually talk about titling of the land. They should, as far as I'm concerned, as tomorrow, ensure that they title all the land using technology.
Yes.
and monitor, what kind of activities take place within their land. And then the last point is the judicial systems in place. Most of the conflict we're seeing is because the judicial system is failing to arrest offenders and punish those offenders. So what are they doing at their subnational level to improve the administration of justice so that offenders are arrested and they are penalized? As long as they don't do all of these things, then sadly, I would say there is room for improvement in the way they are managing both security at the subnational level.
And interestingly, Dr. Adamu, you've always made reference to Lagos State, and you thought that by now some of these governors should have taken a cue from the operations of Lagos State, especially the Neighborhood Watch. But the big question, just like you've asked, is what are they waiting for? For Benue State, for instance, I've had a conversation with the media aide to the former governor, Samuel Autumn. Before then, I had a conversation with the CPS to the current governor, Tesukula. Despite both leaders trying to politicize the situation in Benue State, they agreed on a particular thing, which is that no community in Benue State is killing another community. What both men have agreed on is that there is nothing like farmer-herder clash in Benue State. They say this is invasion, attacks and killings of Benue State. Do you think the issue of insecurity in Benue State is being taken for granted?
No, I don't think so. I know that everyone is worried. The governor, in fact, being a clergyman, I'm sure he's extremely disturbed. Most times, clergymen are more sympathetic, more empathetic than us, the average person. So I know he's extremely worried, and I would not say he's taking it for granted. But then the challenge that I've seen, and it's difficult for me to say this without being too critical, is that public security is taken for granted. Public security is it's a systematic process. You may be very good in what you do, but if you don't understand public security, then you would fail. And I think this is one of the challenges I've seen in both states. I mentioned to you that they've appointed special advisors on security. In the case of Benue State, he actually has different levels. He has, I think, about two. One that relates with the federal security agencies, and then the other one that handles internal security. But then how has he authorized those persons that he has appointed in terms of funding, in terms of the offices that they have, and the kind of equipment they have in those offices? So that's part of the challenge. I think I am hoping that we would see better in terms of the type of persons that are appointed, in terms of the authorization. No matter how good someone is, if you appoint that person and you don't give him the necessary authority to handle the offices that you've appointed him in, then he's not able to perform. And of course, you have to also give him the necessary financial support to allow him to do all the things that he wants to do. Public security, like I said, has 6 layers. And if we do not have effective components of each of these 6 layers, if you just have one and think you've done it, it's tantamount to someone just installing CCTV in a house. And then concluding that he has effective physical security. No, all of these 6 components will have to be in place within the public security system if we are going to see effectiveness. Just to give you an example and to buttress the point I'm making, in each of the local governments, I want a situation where the governors should simulate an attack in that local government and then see how long it takes the public security agencies to respond to that attack. Again, I said simulate. Don't wait until the attack happens. Now, if it takes, say, 1 day before response, you failed. In normal security parlance practices, it is 7 minutes. Anything above 7 to 15 minutes, it's not good enough. So the governors should make sure they have systems in place where response capabilities are delivered in nothing above 15 minutes. And like I said, they should simulate those type of attacks and see what. Don't wait until it happens and then you start running around and complaining that you have this challenge and all of that. Make it forward looking. Make it a very functional one. And like I said, keep on doing drills and exercises and see where the mistakes are. Don't wait until the enemy
to attack. All right, Dr. Adamu, let's go on a break, and when we come back, we'll dig deep. Thank you.